Hi, welcome to Nothing Venture, Nothing Game. Your host with the most, your GM Jared. And today, I'm joined by Steve.
Yo.
And we're checking out Pathfinder 2nd Edition Playtest, The Psychic, from the Dark Archives. So stick around as we dive into and have a general overview conversation of The Psychic. You didn't get that? Means like and subscribe really helps us out. So the Psychic, it's a intelligence or charisma based caster. 6 hit points, so you're not looking at a lot. But what they can do will blow your mind. All the puns are coming your way. That's why you're here. We love it. So Steve, tell us about the Psychic, because you know the mats. I'm just here to give you my feelings, which, funnily, is something that comes up as a Psychic. You can fight with your feelings.
Yes, you can. So the Psychic is one of the 2 new classes in the Pathfinder playtest that ends around the end of October. It is an uncommon class, so you're going to need your DM's okay to be able to run this class. But at first level, you're going to get all the general proficiencies that every character class gets at first level. They are trained in perception, they are trained in fortitude and reflex saves, and are expert in will saves. They are trained in occultism. They are trained in a number of skills equal to 3 plus their intelligence modifier. They are trained in simple weapons and unarmed attacks, and they are not trained in any type of armor except unarmored. And they're trained with the occult spell attack rolls and occult spell DCs. So the Psychic is a full spellcaster. They get spell levels all the way up to level 9, actually level 10, once they get high enough level. And they're similar to sorcerers. They're actually similar to sorcerers as they cast with a spell repertoire, which means they can only cast the spells that they know, but they can cast them without preparing them ahead of time. They also, once they pick their subconscious mind, which is a class feature that they get at first level, dictates how they cast their spells, as well as which ability score is their key ability modifier.
Now, it's really interesting that this class, again, you choose kind of what your caster. So when you're building this class, you kind of have to go in a little bit ahead of time and know what you're building into, because obviously, as a GM and a min-maxer, I love kind of having the strongest. And as a caster, it's always recommended to have that to be your strongest stat or your second highest strongest stat, right? So in this, you kind of have to know, like, oh, I'm going to go the emotional acceptance subconscious mind, and that's a charisma based. So I can build towards charisma as my focus, or I could go as the other school, which is
The precise discipline.
That's what it is. Sorry, the precise discipline, which is your intelligence based one, and again, build towards that. So this one I really like because you have your emotional components. Whenever you cast a spell you gain from your Psychic class, you could take out any verbal and replace it with a emotion component.
Mm-hmm.
So like, instead of screaming, like instead of saying like Wingardium Leviosa, which is my verbal, it's like you just feel angry or lighter than air, right? Like I want you to feel like lighter than air, right? And that's really cool because that ties in to one of the new schools of magic, which from the Secrets of Magic, which was the emotional mage.
Mm-hmm.
So now it ties in like so awesome because you could probably do that with the Psychic and just be all about emotions and be like, oh, I'm gonna make you feel my pain, feel it. And that's kind of why you're here, right? Like, so Steve is the discipline. And I'm
the precise discipline.
I'm the emotional acceptance because I talk about how I feel about this, and Steve's like, these are the rules.
Are the numbers,
These
man.
are the numbers, man.
Do the math.
And the Psychic is so they split themselves. The way they describe the flair for the class is you're split between your conscious mind and your unconscious or your subconscious mind. So your casting comes from your subconscious, but your conscious mind also gives you casting.
Yeah, it kind of directs it. So you get innately a first level spell that you know, and you get 3 cantrips that you pick from the occult. They are occult spellcasters.
Yep.
And you get 3 that you pick from normally. And then depending on whether you pick emotional acceptance or precise discipline, keep in mind that this is a playtest. There may be more options when this becomes fully released, but at the moment there's 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about this a lot. We specifically said we wish they would release a class that uses focus points because I feel you feel the same, emotionally accepting of that. Focus points
shows.
Yes, focus points are really cool tool in Pathfinder Second Edition, and they, I feel that they haven't really like used them to the fullness, and this class kind of grabs that and just like rides it.
Yeah, I think that this class is going to start a trend that you're going to see different classes with focus points or focus point like class features. That's really going to open up the gate and let them kind of go a little crazy. The interesting thing about this is you gain a lot of good benefits for using the either emotional acceptance or precise discipline, but each one of them has a way that your emotions can affect you negatively. So in the case of the emotional acceptance, if you're affected by a harmful emotional effect, your cantrips heighten at 1 level lower than normal. So literally, like you're so crazed with whatever emotion that you're being forced to feel that it's so unusual for you that you're kind of weak to it, and it kind of lowers your effectiveness of your cantrips, which is actually a quite interesting ability.
Oh yeah, it's a nice way to balance the subclasses in my head while you're playing, but like they cast an emotional spell on you,
like fear,
and you're just like, get out of my head, man. When you're kind of the precise discipline, they kind of talk about like harmonic tones and kind of being, I guess, like in a zen state, or your mind's in like very positive sense. So again, your character is kind of, there's a meme we just talked about it with Zach Galifianakis where he's seeing all the numbers, and that's kind of where your character is. And then the moment they're casting a spell, and let's say you're next to an enemy that has attack of opportunity, and they hit you, and it disrupts your ability, you're stupefied. You just get knocked out of it. You're like, I can't. Too many numbers. And
you're also, so that's only if it's disrupted. But if someone makes a reaction against you when you cast a spell, you're immediately flat-footed because you were just unaware of that's happening because you're too involved in your equations and your math, and you don't even see the axe coming towards your face.
Yes, I've actually known people like that. So this one I think is a little too heavy-handed.
What do you mean in the detriment?
Yeah, because
it only is an attack of opportunity, which is a pretty unusual ability. In first edition, everyone had attack of opportunity, but in this version, attack of opportunity is only coming from a few select sources, and only certain monsters have it. So a lot of the monsters that you would normally be facing wouldn't actually even trigger this.
That's true.
So
fair enough. I stricken that from the book.
I used math.
He mathed me to death. So your conscious mind. This is the other half of your character. Subconscious kind of dictates where your spell stats come from. Conscious mind is similar. I'm going to equate it to something everyone understands. It's like when you choose champion and you choose lawful good, chaotic good, and neutral good.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's like a path. So it's or like the ranger where it's the precision, the flurry, or the other one, the one where you're better at stealth and stuff like that. So this is your path, more or less. There's 3 paths in this playtest. Hopefully there's more. There's the distant grasp. There is the infinite eye and the silent whisper. By the way, these names are dope. I don't know how long they went through, like, play names. Awesome. Infinite Eye is the greatest name ever. But I'm going to say this from the emotional sense and not the number sense. All of these are dope because of what they give you and how they mess with cantrips. And I love how they just make your cantrip so much cooler. And like, even like whack cantrips like detect magic suddenly become way cooler. Yeah. And I'm all about it. But again, tell us about the math, the real rules.
So when you pick your conscious mind, each conscious mind grants a certain spells as you gain higher levels. So you're going to get a spell added to your spell repertoire at first level, all the way up till 9th level. These are spells that you don't have to add to your spell book. They're already added. Well, your spell book, they're already added to your spell repertoire as you level. you're also going to gain surface cantrips. This is surface psi cantrips. This is what we were talking about. You're going to get 2 regular cantrips, but it's going to show you how you can use focus points to boost them up. And it's also going to grant you a specific psi cantrip that's only for that particular conscious mind. It also shows you your deeper psi cantrip. You can gain a feat that gives you access to the deeper psi cantrip, which is another specialized cantrip that you can use with your focus points that boost it up.
Yeah. So for the distant grasp, as the name kind of sounds, it deals with like doing stuff at distance.
Yeah, telekinesis, things at range.
Yeah.
We're not going to go over the granite spells. You're going to get Mage Hand and telekinetic projectile as your cantrips, as well as telekinetic rend. It just sounds awesome.
That's the distant grasp. Infinite Eye. Obviously, you get a bunch of granted spells. You get Infinite Eye. It's about seeing the unseen, right? Like it's that third eye power. So you get detect magic. It was cool. I'm not. I think Read Aura is a little bit better. Maybe they'll have something with Read Aura when the book comes out. But
Read Aura is also a longer cast time.
Yes.
It's not in actions, it's in minutes.
It's a minutes thing.
So.
Guidance, which I think is one of the greatest cantrips in the game to begin with.
We were just talking about it earlier.
Yeah. And then finally you get Mental Scan, which is Scanners. If you've never seen that movie, it's where you just read someone's head and you blow their brains. I don't think that's not what this one does. But that'd be pretty cool. And then lastly, you get your Silent Whisperer. So this one gets you Daze. That's a solid cantrip. Message, underused, but again, solid.
I think that this use of giving you this spell Message and the increases that it gives you is actually very interesting. It's a very support-oriented version of Message. Mm-hmm. We'll get into that in just a second.
Yeah.
But you also get...
And last but not least is Nudge Intent. So you kind of like... you give them a little push, a little nudge to change what they feel. So again, we kept talking about these psi points. You get to kind of like boost these cantrips, right? And we were talking like So let's go to the Infinite Eye, right? Like I was talking smack about the Infinite Eye with the detect magic, right? And I was like, detect magic is whack. I'm not a big fan. It's kind of like weak radar. It's like there is magic somewhere in the room. But so you get your psi power. You're the psychic mage, and you have the Infinite Eye, and you're cool, and you're like, I'm going to amp, and I love that word, amp. It just makes me amped. So you use the amp, and you pulse of detect magic helps you gain a sense of nearby magic, strengths or weaknesses, as long as you detect the presence of magic, and it doesn't matter. You gain a +1 bonus to saves against magic for 3 rounds flat. So it's not even the caster in the room that is casting spells. As long as someone has magic in the room,
you're ready.
You're good. You're good to go. And that's very powerful because a +1 does change the game. To saves, right? Like to saves. So remember, if you're an emotional mage, someone casts fear, but you've detected magic, now you already have a high will save because it's a will save on fear.
Mm-hmm. And getting a +1.
And you're getting a +1, so you're less likely to have that negative, subconscious mind factor playing. So that's powerful, right off the bat. That's powerful. I know Steve was just mentioning Message. So Message is in the
that is in the Silent Whispers.
Yeah.
So Message, obviously, the normal spell casting is let you send a short message to a nearby person. When you amp it, now remember, you're using a focus point to do this. So when you amp it, you're sending a telekinetic message that allows you to coordinate your actions with your allies while you pass on information. The target of your message can immediately spend its reaction to step or stride. And it also gets even better as your cantrips get more heightened. Let's say it's amped at 4th level. The target of your message can choose to shove, strike, or trip as a reaction instead. That is busted, and I love it.
That's so powerful. That is so powerful because I'm going to be talking to the barbarian down the block. I'm going to be like, yo, barbarian.
Take a swing.
Knock him down. And you knocked, and as a reaction. So this is I'm trying to get the higher initiative before the barbarian. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to, and having the barbarian, like if you're prone, you're flat-footed. to all attacks. And as a reaction, barbarians don't get that. Like, the reason why I bring barbarians and not fighters into this, fighters have attack of opportunity. They might not burn their reaction.
Yeah, barbarians don't, they can get it, but they don't generally start with it.
Yeah. Or like, you know, even like champions, they get a lot of shield block. You know, that's kind of their bread and butter. Obviously, if your team is playing differently, it's fine. Or the ranger, same effect. The ranger doesn't get that many reactions like that. And if you could give a ranger or the summon Eidolon from the summoner to knock someone down, come on, man. That's so OP. That's not overpowered, but it's dope.
So we've talked about a lot about focus points. The key thing here is the psychic starts with 2 focus points.
Yeah.
And they actually have an interesting way of refocusing. Mm-hmm. If they've used 2 focus points on amping their cantrips, when they refocus 2 focus points.
Only class in the game
that gets it innately, yes.
Yes.
If you've used your focus points, say you get another ability from another spellcasting class and use it to cast a spell, then you're only going to get 1 back. But if your last 2 uses is to get you to amp your cantrips, you're going to get 2 back and it just puts you right back in the game.
I'm messaging everyone.
People are going to just tell my character, shut up, please.
Stop talking in my head. So we talked about the subconscious and the conscious mind, how they kind of build your character. And last but not least is the Unleash Psyche.
So the Unleashed Psyche, the thing is, it is 1 action, but you can't do it before the 3rd round of combat. So at that point, your psyche is starting to become a little untenable, and you unleash your focused intent. And the benefit is when you cast a spell with a spell slot while you have unleashed focused intent, you gain a status bonus to that spell's damage equal to double the spell's level, as long as the spell deals damage and doesn't have a duration. But there is a drawback. This focused offense comes at the expense of your defense. You take a -2 penalty to AC while you have unleashed focused intent, and you can't do this until you refocus.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of weird that they specifically were like, turn 3 only. Go. I understand why, because you could go Nova on turn 1.
Yeah.
And at higher levels, as we all know with all classes, the higher levels you go, the stronger your characters get, the faster they can burn enemies down. Especially if you're in the big boss fight, everyone knows like, oh, the boss is coming up in the dungeon, or like a Hydra just showed up and we need to kill the Hydra really fast. And everyone's like, okay, after this fight, we're just going back to the town. So burn what you got.
Yeah.
You know, and
I understand the fact that they're limiting it to, it's as well as a lore thing, as well as when you also, something I forgot, when you unleash your psyche, it lasts for 3 rounds, and during that time, you can amp 1 side cantrip each round without paying its focus point cost. Mm-hmm. So this is another reason why when you unleash your psyche, that it's something that you can only do every once in a while, is because not only are you getting free cantrips when you're casting spells out of your spell slots that do damage, you're just getting free damage.
Yeah.
You're just getting free damage out of nowhere. So other classes that get free damage usually have a caveat. This caveat's got to wait 3 turns.
You have to wait 3 turns.
And you also get some detriment with it, which is the minus AC. Yeah.
I'm on the fence about that. You know, again, I don't have a lot of beef with, I know that playtest, so like saying stuff like I'm on the fence about certain things, it's just how I feel. My perspective is I'm already keeping track of everything else. And now I'm going to have a player. I know I'm going to have a player be like, is this turn 3? And I'm like, yes, it's turn 3. Okay. You know, like I know a lot of people are like, well, let your players keep track of that. Like they keep track of like their abilities and stuff. But you know, it either slows down the player because they're keeping track of rounds, or they're also keeping track of like, you know, other things happening. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a lot. You know, I think I don't know, right? Like I'm not a game designer. You know, I'm sure there is a reason why they put that in. I hope it stays that way, or maybe like, you know, it's probably easier than saying like at half your hit points, you know, or something like that, you know.
Like I said, I'm not sure if they're going to change it. Yet again, this is a playtest, so depending on the kind of feedback that Paizo is going to get, they may retool that, they may take it out, they may adjust it.
Yeah.
Freak Psy cantrip every turn.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
Even if it was just that. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And then on top of that, when you dump a spell slot spell, it gets even better.
Yeah.
So I can understand there's a big limitation on that.
Now we're just going to talk about a few of the feats that we kind of really like. I'm going to jump into this first, and I'm going to talk about a first level feat that I really thought was really interesting. So it's Astral Mind. Astral Mind is really it's an interesting feat. I don't know how it plays out, right? Like obviously you got to play test it. That's what we're play testing. But I'm not like it sounds dope. It sounds really cool.
Oh yeah. No, I remember that one now.
Yeah. So basically you tap into your like ancestral DNA in your psyche, and you learn to convert your inherent magic into psychic powers. So if your heritage or your ancestry has any kind of magical influence, you just get it. You're like, I got this power now. So basically what happens is you can cast any innate spell from an ancestry feat or heritage using your psychic spellcasting component. When you do so, the spell's tradition becomes occult if it wasn't already. And then the DC is just your spellcasting stuff.
So normally when you're casting an innate spell, it's always based on your charisma.
Yeah.
And it's always using and you're trained in it.
Yeah.
So what this allows you to do is say you're the intelligence-based psychic, and you're casting something from your ancestry. Normally you'd have a charisma, but say you don't have a good charisma. You can then, if you take this feat, now they don't get feats at first level, so you have to get this feat somewhere else. Either take it later or have your ancestry grant you a feat.
Yeah.
You can use that. Now it's using your intelligence, and your intelligence is already good, and using your intelligence DC if it has a DC. So it's just as good as any one of your other spells you'd normally be casting.
So this makes like a gnome psychic pretty powerful, because gnomes have charisma. They start with charisma, and you might build into that you know, the emotional gnome, which gnomes are already very emotional. That's kind of like what they're known for. But you might want to, you know, play against the stereotype and be an intelligence-based gnome. And well, you know, oh man, I might have dumped charisma, or I never touched it. And I do have, you know, some of those innate spellcasting abilities that I really want to use, but they suck. And now I grab this and I can use it. Or, you know, you're an elf and you already got that high int bonus.
Yeah.
And now you're able to just keep pumping that int, and you don't have to worry about the charisma.
Yeah.
So that was my first level pick. I thought that was really cool. You know, it's an interesting way to make your intelligence modifier, if you're building intelligence, play better, and it plays very coolly into like your story. They did a really good job of interweaving the lore and the ability at the same time. All right, tell me about the feat you chose, Steve.
Okay, so the feat I chose, just because every time we've watched a movie that psychic, or any movie or any TV show that crazy powers and psychic weirdness is involved, and the person goes a little beyond what they normally could do.
Stranger Things.
The requirement is you have 0 focus points, and you don't have your psyche unleashed. So going back to that original ability, if you've already done that, you can't use this feat. It's a free action, and your trigger is you cast a psi cantrip. You strain your body beyond its limits to use an amp even when your mental power is depleted. You apply an amp to a known spell, an amp you know to a spell. Instead of paying the normal focus point cost, you lose hit points equal to double the level of the amped psi cantrip as you bleed from your nose or suffer other visible signs of strain.
That's so fun.
I think that's metal. That's pure metal.
That's so awesome.
It's like, I use my brain to kill you.
That's I'm bleeding from the eyes, right? Like if you're going in, like we've all
full
seen
stigmata.
Yeah, like we've all done we've all seen you're right. You know, we've all seen the terrible 90s movies where they you know, and then the single drop of blood. But at this point, like it's gotta come from the ears or something. Right? Like, or your teeth just bleed, or maybe like one just falls out, and that's your thing. Like, you know, like, and you just have false teeth, and your character just keeps losing teeth. It's so freaking metal, but and it's not terrible.
Yeah.
Right? Like the double the spell level at 9th level, you're
losing 18.
You're losing 18 hit points.
Yeah.
That's not terrible. It's, you know, obviously if you're doing this, you're in a fight. You know, and and I like it too because it specifically says you can't do it after unleashed. So you have to be smart.
Yeah.
Right?
And also, you can only do it once an hour. So it's basically going to be once a fight or so.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got like 32 teeth or something like that. You do it 32 times.
And it is a free action.
Which is super important. Like a lot of things are actions or something like that. A free action is super valuable.
Yeah.
Not a lot of classes get them.
Mm-hmm.
So having that on in your repertoire is kind of really powerful. So the next one, so we're just jumping around. So I did the first level, Steve did the fourth. I'm jumping higher than Steve because we're just going back and forth for the flow of the video. Mental static. This is 8th level feat. This is cool. And now the funny thing is the two we're choosing right now actually tie into something we talked about earlier, subconscious mind. So the one I'm talking about is the mental static. And the reason why I looked at this one was because I like the emotional abilities. So remember how I said, we said one of the drawbacks was if someone hits you with a mental ability, something to mess with your mental faculties, you get that negatives.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you take this at 8th level, or when you get the feat level 8, and it's a reaction. The trigger, you roll a critical on a will save against a mental effect from a creature. Now, the thing is, you're like, nah, I'm not about that life. Take that bullshit, you go home. That's not the exact wording. That's just me paraphrasing it. But basically what happens is you deal mental damage equal to your level back to the creature when you take this reaction. And it's all non-lethal. You're like, no. But the cool thing is, and the thing that drew me to this is, if you desire, you can also send them a single image to coincide with the damage, such as a watching eye or the dread of floating in an infinite sea. That is so cool. I like the mental image thing. You obviously want to shoot them back with like a really cool image, and maybe you got like a flip book of like images you go through as you do that to your enemies, and you make them see like, naked grandma in the bathtub. That's terrible.
That's wrong.
But yeah, like that, or something silly, right? Like you're like, 100 hydras like vomiting out your mouth or something, snakes coming out your eyeballs. Something like that. I like that. It's non-lethal damage, which I'm not a fan of. That's the thing, because like now because remember, like non-lethal doesn't count towards downing an enemy. It's non-lethal damage. Yeah.
And it's also on a crit success. I think it should be full damage because it only is your level. So even if at max, it's still just 20 damage.
And at level 20.
It is mental damage, so maybe less things are resistant to it, but still, just give them the full damage.
And as real damage. Yeah, as a critical, my reaction is it has to be a critical success. Like it should just be damage. Yeah. So because I'm rolling, I feel like it should just be.
I agree.
If I'm dealing 9 points of damage, I'm dealing 9 points of mental damage. Half the time, the creatures that are doing this to me have a high save anyway.
Yeah, or they may be resistant to mental damage.
Or they might be resistant.
Yeah.
And now over to Steve, going back and forth.
All right, so the one I picked is specifically for the precise discipline subconscious mind, is unleash calculated reasoning. So it's a 1 action ability, and you use this ability before you cast a spell.
Mm-hmm.
But the requirements are you cast 2 damaging spells since rolling initiative, but those spells were cast on different rounds. It's got a lot of requirements, but your mind overflows with calculated confidence that all results should be exactly what you've determined them to be. The benefit is, while your psyche is unleashed, when you would roll damage for a spell, you can instead choose to just take half of the maximum damage. This would be the full effect of the spell. So if someone saved to take half damage, they would take half of this number. The drawback, here's the cool part. Unlike other psyches, unleashed calculated reasoning has no drawbacks, since you've already taken everything into account and canceled all the drawbacks out.
That's the best answer ever. It's just, no, I thought of that.
No, I thought of that.
Yeah. No.
Your math does not check out.
Yeah. No. I love that. And so, I think that's a very well-balanced one compared to mine.
So this also brings up an important point. Other psyche feats all have drawbacks. So there's other ways to get different amps that you can amp your cantrips with. Mm-hmm. But almost all of them are going to come with drawbacks. So anytime you're going to pick one of these psych feats, they're going to have drawbacks coming with it.
Yeah. And, don't forget, check the tags when you're doing stuff. Tags are important. They tell you map multiple attack penalties and stuff like that. Because with this, if you're casting damaging spells, you're taking probably multiple attack penalties. So just double check your tags on your spells and such. So I'm going to toss it over to Steve. Initial thoughts.
When I first read this and I was reading the way that the Psyche cantrips were going to work, I was like, oh man, they brought back the psionics from 3rd edition D&D, because this is literally the first thing I thought of when I thought of this. And it's bringing back that in almost like a spiritual successor to it, because just the way that you're amping up your spells, which is something that you could do then, and then, but also giving you these drawbacks, which you're taking all this mental strain to be able to do this, whether it's hyper precision and, eventually, your eyes just start getting crossed at that point, or it's so much emotion that you just get overcome. So yeah, I think that they did a really good job with all the different feats, and there's a lot of different directions you can go. So yeah, I'm thumbs up. Another full caster that we haven't seen too many full casters, because even the last when Seekers of Magic came out, the Magus and the Summoner, they technically all went up to 9th level spells, but they had that restriction of spell slots.
Yeah.
So this is another full caster, and it really widens out the area of what you can play as a full caster with crazy abilities.
Yeah. To jump on top of that, I do like that they give you the choice of intelligence or charisma. Allows you for a wide berth of ancestral choices. For your ancestries. Because it's a little difficult as a dwarf, as a person who likes playing dwarf, to find casters that run off of other things, right? Like wisdom, because they start with wisdom, right? But they also take that drawback to charisma. Yeah. So that takes out a lot of casters, right? Like I can't go sorcerer. I can't. Well, you can. You can. It's just it's going to be harder, and you're. Yeah, I'm jumping through a lot of hoops to play that sorcerer dwarf. This is cool because now I could go, okay, I'm going to play a dwarf but run intelligence. Yeah. And I could build heavy into intelligence, and that'd be really cool. Maybe I could even take alchemy, specialty craft alchemy with intelligence. It balances really well. Yeah. Or
crafting, just taking and crafting.
Yeah. General crafting, which again, that's always useful. The champion shield keeps getting smashed. Who they keep coming to? The guy with quick craft. Stepping on the toes of that inventor class. But yeah, I like that. I like it. It gives you a lot of choices. It's not, you have the witch that's intelligence based. You have the wizard that's intelligence based. And this, the investigator, but that's not. It's not spellcaster. It's not spellcaster. Yeah. And this is just another, intelligence caster that I really like. That's intelligence based, and also charisma based, right? You get both.
Yeah, and I also like the fact that they basically went ham with the cantrips.
Oh yeah,
they went so ham with the cantrips because you don't get focus spells. These are your focus spells, so you can cast them regularly. And like I say, even those special side cantrips, you can cast them regularly and they still have effects, but then you can just amp them up and do crazy things with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, check it out. It's currently up right now. So run to your computers, to your smartphones, download it, check it out if you haven't. I definitely have to say, I'm going to say this. Some playtest classes, I'm not going to talk smack, but the Magus wasn't really fleshed out very well. There were a lot of open floors. Like when you looked at it, you were like, okay, this doesn't seem to check out. We're clearly in the working process. And that's why we have the playtest. And that's why Paizo lets us into the playtest, which, is really dope. This class I feel is solid. Like it's a solid base.
Yeah. This is either solid or slightly overtuned.
Yes.
Depending on how you look, because maybe the drawbacks, like I said, some of the drawbacks you can avoid, or maybe some drawbacks are just not enough compared to other classes who have similar abilities. So it may be a little overtuned, but you're still talking about, your cantrips do crazy stuff, but you still are a full spellcasting class. So you still have spell slots that you can cast like any other class.
Yeah.
That have spells.
I do. Yeah. So thumbs up.
Yeah.
Thumbs up. So from all of us here at Nothing Venture, Nothing Game, we love rolling dice, giving advice with a little bit of that New York spice. Say goodnight.
Later.